What's up, y'all? I do believe I'm live. Let me get Instagram going. All right. I do believe I'm live on Instagram. All right. Today is launch day for Too Many Wings. And I've been waiting on this day for a very long time, longer than you could possibly imagine. Some of you saw me earlier, 10 o'clock this morning, but I knew everybody couldn't make it at 10 o'clock. So I wanted to do another one. So I'm on this afternoon to talk about that book you see behind you, if you're on Facebook, YouTube, or Twitter. And then on Instagram, talk about this right here. I know you guys can see it too, but it tends to disappear in my background. On Instagram, this is what I'm talking about. Okay, so we're going to talk about three things on this broadcast. We're going to talk about what, we're going to talk about how, and we're going to talk about why. So let's get started. Okay. What is this book? What is it? Okay. I'll tell you what this book is not. This book is not the second novel in the series. That's coming out. More on that later. See, it disappears when I hold it up here. So I got to hold up to my chin. What this book is it's an interlude. Okay. What this book is it's an interlude. And what that means is that it's set right after the events of the first novel, which is this one, Lucifer, Soldier, Serpents, and Sin, A Clash of Lightning and Thunder. It's set right after the events of this novel, and it picks up where that novel ends. Okay? But it's not a side book, it's not a side quest. It's just as much as part of the story as the main novels are. Okay? It's important to the canon because it's a bridge to the next full-length novel, and also because a whole bunch of things are revealed in it. Many significant things are revealed in it. As a matter of fact, the very first part of it, the first prologue, reveals something significant. So this is not just something I threw in here. This is something you need to read if you want to understand the full flow of the entire series. Okay, so even though it's an interlude, it's still significant to the canon. It's still significant to what's going on in the entire series. Okay, so you definitely want to read it with detail because there's some payoff from the first novel in there, and there's some setup for some things that happen after. You meet right away, you meet some familiar characters, some characters that you already met in the first novel, and then you meet some new characters with a brand new kind of situation. Okay, so again, there's some payoff, there's some setup, but it's connective. It's connective. Okay, now you have to read the first book. You have to read the first novel first. You got to read this first. Y'all can see it on Instagram, but then it keeps disappearing over here. You got to read this book first, okay? Otherwise, the interlude book, this one, is not going to make any sense to you, okay? It's all connected because it's all one big story. And I'm going to talk about that in a minute, okay? So again, it's not one of those things that is just sandwiched in there. It's not one of those things that's optional. That's what I'm trying to communicate to you. It's a part of the canon. It's a part of the story. And there's some significant details that get talked about from the first one and set up for what's coming up. Okay? So just so you understand what that book is. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to read a brief passage. And I'm not going to read it all at once, but we're just going to read a quick 3 pages so you get some idea of what's going on. Here we go. Now, I'm going to read it and then I'm going to explain to you what I'm reading because you're really going to need it to read it in context to fully understand what I'm saying, but here goes. So instead, I should suck up to those snooty seraphim like you do. And for the record, that second sight you keep trying to shush me out of almost what? Got us killed? Embarrassed me down to the last feather on my wings? Ithodore held his head down. But Core, we won, he said. He said pensively, the Thronus won, and we helped save the day, didn't we? Did we? Ithodore found himself suddenly wordless. The normally loquacious twin smelled the musk and sweat in the South Armory's rear training room surrounding them, and it felt heavier than usual. Folding their wings down into resting position, with the pine green feathers snugly nestling into the centers of their respective backs, the events of this last week hung between the siblings like soot in the air. Ithacor broke the awkward silence. That's your problem, Spaghetti Lips. What's my problem, Core? And for the record, my lips are not. You presume too much, brother. That's what makes you telegraph your finishing move. And I mean every single time, Selah. You keep believing that speed is enough. That's incorrect. Maybe we can ask Michael to glue a spatial geometry calculator to your face. Are we talking about our sparring sessions, Core, or everything that happened this week and all the gushing purple bruises we have to show for it? I can barely sleep now. Did you know that? Of course I know that. And when I can't sleep, I can't think. Closing my eyes makes me see things that I wish I hadn't seen. All those brethren, our own friends, melted together in a pile of slag, said Ithodore. Just brief excerpt, might read a little bit more later. Now, who's talking? Are the Ith twins. In the first book, you meet a set of gladiator twins named Ithodore and Ithacor. Okay, so they're here again in this book. They're complaining about training while they're sparring. They're training each other, but something else is supposed to be going on. And so they're complaining about the training they're supposed to be receiving while they're sparring. So if you remember them from the first two, they were very, very snarky twins, but one was really conservative and one was really more kind of out there, and they had different powers they weren't willing to let people know about. So all that's back for this particular installment. Okay? And so what this book is about is, well, I'll give away a spoiler if I talk too much about the ending of last book. But let's just say there are some problems that occur related to the events of the ending of the last book. That's probably the best way for me to say it without absolutely spoiling everything in it. But there's some problems that occur at the ending of the last book, and this book deals with those particular problems that Michael did not count on, problems that Michael, the archangel, did not see coming. Now, the Archwisdors are back. Now, there are archangels in the first book, and in my story world, they're called Archwisdors. There's Michael, there's Gabriel, there's Uriel, and there's Raphael. Michael is the head of the gladiators. He's the one that runs all the gladiators for the realm. Gabriel is the head of the messengers. Uriel does not have a group. He's the great negotiator. He's the archangel that tries to negotiate and mediate and settle disputes between the angels, but he doesn't have a negotiator group that he leads. He's normally by himself. And that's kind of why he takes the Ith twins under his wings, so to speak. And then there's Raphael. Raphael is the medical archangel. He's the healer. He's the one that keeps the leaves from the tree that heals all of the angels from their wounds. Okay? So it's a very complex, very intricate story world. And I'm going to explain that a little bit more later. But a lot of your favorite characters are back. But there's some new characters you meet in here too. And then, so anyway, I can't say too much more or else I'll spoil. But you have to read the whole thing in context. So let me read another page right quick. I'm going to read the page right after the one I just read. Here we go. I see Lucifer's overpowered form, said Ithacor. He was a dragon, and his shape got contorted until his very body angles were not possible. Just not possible, his voice trailing off. Ithodor kicked his booted toe on the ground. I did sense death, and I was right. Are we just ignoring that too? We are not ignoring anything, brother. And by anything, you mean, oh, I don't know, like the fact that we got sent out here and haven't heard from Uriel in 4 days? Another interminable beat of silence went on. I'm sure, I'm sure he has his reasons, said a suddenly uncertain sounding Ithacor. And as always, you defend him. What is it with you? Nothing is with me, you caramel twit. I got the brain between us, remember? Sure you did. Let me count the lobes. I'm the odd brother out, as always, evidenced by the fact that we've been holed up in here by ourselves for the last 4 days. Just the two of us, training while waiting to train so we can train for our training. Wait until you get a load of earth, he said. Ithacor scowled as Ithodor mocked Uriel's hearty voice. You're going to get your next level gladiator training, Ithodor scorned. I will repeat, he has his reasons. And, continued Ithacor, a little solitude is sometimes a good thing, a necessary thing. Uh-huh, said Ithodor. A lifetime of solitude, however. Then he gets interrupted. All right, so I know just out of context, that doesn't make a lot of sense. You got to read it in context, but it's with the Gladiator twins, and you get it. You'll get it when you read it. Again, the stuff I write is very complex and intricate, and you have to pay attention to the details because all of the threads lead into something. I don't have threads or plot ideas that I just drop randomly. I have threads and story ideas that feed into what's going on in the overall story. So when you read it in context, it'll make a lot of sense to you. It's not something where, again, if you haven't read this novel, I know a lot of people write books to be standalone, but my books are not standalone. My books are one big continual story, and you have to read all the parts of it to get the full impact of what's going on. Okay? All right, so that's the what. Now, I'm going to talk about the how I wrote it. Now, first of all, the thing that people ask me all the time is why did it take so long? Why did it take so long to get something else out in this series? Well, the answer to that question has many answers, but I will give you a couple. The first answer is because when I say I wrote a story world, I literally mean I wrote an entire story world. So let me show you. And I'm going to have to pick my phone up and show y'all on Instagram what I'm talking about. Okay. So hold on. So that's just my social stuff, Facebook and all that. That's me now live. But I've got that first novel. I've got the novella or the interlude that's dropping today. I've got 3 coloring books: Animals of the Realm, Secret Beasts of the Realm Part 1, Secret Beasts of the Realm Part 2. And then I've got tabletop RPG, a role-playing game. When you click on here, you can download the beta version for free. If you want the box version, you have to write me for that to order that. Now, all of the animals in these 3 coloring books are actually in the story. So that's what I mean when I say none of this stuff is arbitrary or random. So I spent a lot of time putting all that stuff together. And so I went kind of wide in the story world at first, but there's just a lot going on. So it took me a long time to create and promote that stuff. Okay. I also have, at last, the comic book out. So I've got a comic book that's also set in the story world, but it's set way, way after these events. So the Nephilim Wars book 1 is out right there. Let me show you all that. So got the Nephilim Wars. So that's out finally. That's on Kindle, Amazon Kindle. And then I'm working on some. I'm going to bring some print copies with me when I go to signing events. And wait a minute, I didn't show y'all that on StreamYard. There we go. And then setting it up so you can also get a print copy mailed to you and all that. So if you know anything about producing comic books is very resource intensive. Okay, it takes a lot of time, takes a lot of energy, a lot of effort, a lot of different people, a lot of money. It takes out a lot to put out a comic. But I'm working on finishing that story. Got the first issue out, got some more issues coming out this year. So it takes a lot of time to do all of that different kind of stuff. So that's one of the reasons that, it took me so long. And the other reason it took me so long is because I really read the comments. I really take the comments to heart. I really want to get the feedback, because the only way I can become a better writer is if I listen to what, the readers are saying. And so all the stuff I felt like I could use, things that I felt like were constructive criticism, I tried to factor into writing this book. And then, things that I did well, maybe things I did not so well, try to fix that this time go around, or at least improve it, at least make it better. Now, let me just throw a word in here for you authors. Do not lose your mind over overly negative people, or things that are nothing but criticism, especially when they use these big, long, overgeneralized types of things, because people like that just want to be mad and they just want something to vent at, especially when they don't leave any type of positive ways that maybe you can improve or anything. They just want to vent. Don't take stuff like that to heart. Don't you know get yourself all upset about that, because they wouldn't like it no matter what you do. But I did, take to heart some of the more constructive criticisms and really work on my writing to try and make it better. Okay, try and make it better, because writing well is a lifetime endeavor. It's not something you do one time and, oh, you're this magic writing genius or guru. You have to keep doing it over and over and over and over and over again to master whatever genre you're talking about. Now, in terms of genre, this series would be classified more as fantasy. It's not science fiction, but maybe Nephilim Wars might be, maybe the comic book might be, but it's really more fantasy, because it's really not necessarily about technology that hasn't been invented yet, or Earth's future, but Nephilim Wars kind of is, because Nephilim Wars are set at the end of the 30th century. So the comic book series might be considered a combination of sci-fi and fantasy, but the novel series is definitely would be classified as fantasy or epic fantasy or military, because there's a lot of war. There's a lot of war. There's a lot of fighting in these books. Okay. So just to talk about a little bit about the how. And then also, what I want to talk about next is I want to talk about the why, because out of all the questions I get asked, that's the one I get asked the most. David, why would you write a book about this subject? Why would you broach this subject? Why would you get into something like this? Okay. Well, that answer is multi-level, it's multi-layered. So I'm going to give it to you one layer at a time. I'm going to give you the philosophical reason that I dived into a topic like this. I'm going to talk about the philosophy behind why I did it. We have enough as humans already that divides us, and we make a point as humans to try to find as many reasons as we can to stay divided. So I flipped that script and I said to myself, what is it that unites us? What is it as humans what are some of the threads that we all have in common that unites us all as humans? So, of course, there's the positive threads, the desire for life, liberty, and happiness. And no, that's not just a Western thing. Everybody wants to be happy. Everybody wants to be safe. Everybody wants safety for their families, their basic needs, and to pursue whatever kind of dream life they have. That's common. But on the other side, on the flip of that, the thing that we have in common is that we've all wondered about the origin of evil. We've all wondered, why is there evil in this world? We've all wondered, why do we suffer? Why do we go through certain things on earth? And then to take that a step further, a lot of people say, how can people present or posit a loving God and an all-powerful God? I just had this big, long conversation on Twitter where this one person was saying that they didn't believe in a loving God because why are babies raped and why are babies killed and why do all these bad things happen and why do all these tragedies happen? And she was like, there's no excuse and I don't want to hear it. My mind is made up and I've heard every possible explanation, but there's just no excuse for this being allowed to happen on. And she was adamant. Okay. And so I heard Neil deGrasse Tyson say in a video I watched recently that he said he'd been told that God had been presented as loving and all powerful. So he said when he looked at the world around him and he saw all the evil done on the planet, he said he didn't believe God could be both. He said, how can you subscribe to the notion of a loving God with all the evil that's done on the planet? And how can you subscribe to the notion of an all-powerful God if all this evil is allowed to happen? And there is no human being that hasn't stood over a corpse of something or someone and said, why, God, why? Okay, if you buried either one or both of your parents, if you lost a sibling, if you were in a car accident and maybe you survived, but your friends didn't. If you had a dog or a goldfish, if you had anything like that, and you stood over the body of your dead dog and it broke your heart. Some people are so grieved when they lose their pet until they don't get another pet or they don't get another one for a while because they don't want to go through that again. So I don't care who you are. I don't care what your faith beliefs are, your age, your gender, your ethnicity, your primary language, what continent you were born on. Doesn't matter. You stood over the body of something dead and said, why? Why is this kind of thing happening? Okay. Well, before my series is over, we're going to get some answers to those questions. I'm dealing with some of the deeper, more perennial questions that people struggle with, trying to understand the kind of stuff we go through, trying to reconcile the different concepts that are presented, that when you hear one thing and then you look at life and you see something else and you're trying to reconcile, you're trying to figure out how can all that simultaneously be true, because it doesn't make sense to you. Okay, before my series is over, we're going to talk about that, because I'm talking about the origin of evil, what that means, what that looks like, and how did we humans get involved? How does it show up on Earth? Why is it here? That kind of stuff. That kind of stuff touches everybody. I want you to think about the first time you were bullied in school. Unless you are the bully or you were the bully. But I want you to think about the first time somebody hated you and you didn't do anything. They hated you because of what you were, not because you did anything to them in particular, but because of your skin color or because of your language or because of any type of demographic that you couldn't help. And they hated you and they took a personal interest and hating you. And you kept saying inside of yourself, I didn't do anything. I didn't do anything. I didn't do anything. Why do they hate me so? I didn't do anything. Why does that happen? Because that happens to everybody, no matter who you are. Why? So again, before it's all over, we're going to talk about that kind of stuff. So that's more the philosophical angle of why I got into this subject. Now, let me tell you the creative thing that kind of drew me into this. But it's also sociological. So the image that I got stuck on was I wondered what happened the first time the devil looked in a reflective surface like a pond or a river and saw what he had become based on what he was. The name Lucifer means light bearer, light bearer. So somewhere in the heavenly realm or the glory realm, he was a light bearer. He carried light. How did he go from that? And then one day he looked at himself and saw this twisted, ugly, gnarly, beastly dragon form that he had become. How did he get there? What would that do to a person? And the reason I was fascinated by that is so I could avoid it. Because I'm completely fascinated by the idea of how could you be an angel in heaven and turn against God and get kicked out of heaven? How could you be so disgruntled and unhappy or so full of yourself, so unbelievably narcissistic and full of yourself that you thought you were going to overthrow the very sovereign throne of God and take over as new management and institute yourself as the supreme being, and just because you figured you could run all this better? How do you go from being a created being, a bearer of light, to that? And then here's the next one. How do you talk so many people into following you? What did you say? What could you say? How could people be unhappy, or how could angels or celestial beings be unhappy in the glory realm? And why would they follow Lucifer? Why? What did he say that made them leave their place and follow him? That fascinates me. You know why that fascinates me? Because that happens on earth too. What would you do if you were the coolest of the cool kids? What would you do if you were the most popular kid in school and you were part of the most popular clique in school and everybody loved you? Everybody loved you. Everybody followed you. Everybody tried to be like you. Everybody thought you were just the best thing ever. And you were the most popular person going. And then one day you messed up so badly, and then you got kicked out, and then you turned into this beast, and all those that follow you got turned into loathsome, disgusting creatures that could only produce evil and destruction. And you know why I'm fascinated by that? So I can avoid it. Because I would never want to walk down that path. So I said I wanted to study the path to see exactly how that happens. See, because that happens in the celestial realm and that happens here on earth. How is it that you can be blessed? How is it that you can have joy and happiness? How is it that you can have so much good going for you and spit it all away from you and kick it away from you like it's nothing, and conclude, no matter how much stuff you have, that that's not enough? We do that on earth all the time. Are you kidding me? Haven't you ever seen someone, either a celebrity you know or somebody you know personally? Haven't you ever seen someone that from the outside looking in looks like they quote unquote have it all? Now, I don't really like that phrase because having it all is so nebulous and so general and so nondescript, and it's also relative. It's relative. What does that mean? Having it all. Does that mean the same thing here as it does in Japan? Does that mean the same thing in Canada that it does in Argentina? Does Does that mean the same thing in Russia that it does in Australia? Having it all. That phrase amazes me. But anyway, regardless of that, how could you have anything resembling a good life and then just wake up one day and decide, well, that's not enough. Well, that ain't enough. And throw it all away trying to get more. That happened in the heavenly realm, and that happens here on earth every day. And I'm fascinated by the phenomenon on both levels, mainly so I can avoid it. Because that doesn't make any sense to me. What was the cost? What was the cost? You know, some people that have had perfectly good relationships and perfectly good families. And then they hit a point where they say, I don't want to do this anymore. I don't want to do this anymore with you. And they throw it all away. Because they said, this family that I got, this situation that I'm in, is not enough. Not enough. Nope, I need something new. Nope, I need something more. Just whatever. See, that fascinates me. That fascinates me to no end. And so it was that image and those ideas that took me down the path of writing this. When I first started writing this, this was just a very, very, very short story. A very, very short story. And then I started writing and writing more and more and more. And then as I continued to write, it expanded. And by the time I got through, I had written the first novel. And then by the time I had finished everything in the story, so this thing is going to kick out to at least 3 or 4 novels. I think it's going to be at least 4 because I've got so much going on. By the time I got through putting it all together, I realized I needed a bunch of extra books because I guarantee you the stuff that's going to happen in here, you're not going to see it coming. I guarantee you. I guarantee you, if you just hang with me through this novel series, as the story develops and as the events unfold, it's not going to be what you think. And you're not going to see it coming. All right? So that has to do with the ideological underpinnings and also the image, the creative part that kind of motivated me to walk this path because I wanted those answers, because I thought about those images, because I want to avoid everything in the process. So you study the process so you can learn how to avoid every step along the way, because we do it too. If you could be so blessed as to have a heavenly celestial existence in a body that can always get healed and in a body that doesn't die, and decide you would rather risk all that on a takeover, we do that all the time too. We do it all the time. Why? So that fascinates me. That absolutely, absolutely fascinates me. So those are the things that took me down this path. And those are some of the questions that are going to be answered as the series goes on. Okay. All right. So finally, what I want to show you is I want a little treat. I want to give you a little treat for staying with me to the end of this thing. And I'm going to give you a cover reveal of the next full-length novel that's going to be out sometime later this year. And here it is. Okay, that's the next book. Lucifer, Soldier, Serpents, and Sin, Book 2, Provoke the Past. Okay? I'm so proud of that cover. And I'm so proud of the book, and I'm so proud of all this. So all that is coming out later sometime this year. So I will let you know when that actually hits. And I'm sure I'm going to do some more lives or whatever, because I'm so proud of it. And like I said, you won't believe what's coming next. But today, I want you to buy this one. I want you to get this, Soldier, Serpents, and Sin, Too Many Wings. Too Many Wings, okay? That and the first novel and the comic book, The Nephilim Wars, is all available on Amazon right now. So go to Amazon and you can look this up. Look up Lucifer, Soldier, Serpents, and Sin, and you'll see everything there in the series. So you can get all that right now today. The final thing I will say is I want you to leave me a review. The thing that you could do that helps authors out the most, especially, besides obviously, besides buying the content, but especially with the Amazon algorithm and all that, is to leave a review. Now, obviously, I want a positive, glowing review, and obviously, I want you to have some good things to say. But I will take a honest review because that's the only way I can grow as a writer. Because how else will I know if my writing is connecting with my readership or not? Now, if you just want to be negative and you just want to spew a bunch of venom, and I'm not listening to that. But the best thing you can do besides buying the content is actually leave me a review on Amazon, and hopefully it's positive and glowing, but hopefully it's also honest. Because again, how else can I see my deficiencies as a writer if I don't hear from people? How else can I know whether or not my material is connecting with the audience? So if you could do that, I would really, really, really appreciate that. Okay. All right. Well, that's it. This is my afternoon thing I said I was going to do today, just to make sure that everybody that didn't catch me the first time, 10 o'clock, caught me now, to let you know everything that was going on with this launch today. Okay. So thanks for tuning in, everybody that watched me live, and thanks to all of you that are watching on the replay. Please like and share the videos whenever you see them, because people definitely want to know that this content was out. I've been doing a whole bunch of advertising, but I know there's more, and I know there's more people out there that need to see this. So please like and share wherever you watch this content. Okay, really appreciate it. That's it. Thanks so much, and I will see you next time.